Welcome back to the environment track of Wikimania 2019. We are very honored to have Isabel and Sophia here today. They have a busy schedule advocating for climate change awareness all over the world, especially in Europe. And thank you for coming. They are starting as students at Stockholm Universitet very soon, I've heard. But before they sit where you sit right now, they'll stand at the lectern, and I think that's a good way to start an academic career. We have some researchers in the audience, and they will tell you how you did.
Oh no!
No, we are here to learn from you about the what connects our two movements. To what extent? What are the differences and the commonalities between the climate awareness movement or the environment movement and the free knowledge movement, especially since you two represent School Strike for Climate or Fridays for Future, and which preparing for this track today, I thought it is very interesting for us because we as a movement are all about knowledge and education, and your movement says actually we are skipping school because we want, to get people aware that there is a climate emergency. So you are, as I said, you're renouncing your right to an education in order to get politicians and society to change. And from our perspective, I thought that would be very interesting to hear why you're doing this and how you feel about our role within your movement. And so, without further ado, thank you very much. Thank you for coming, Isabel and Sophia, and welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. I think I'm going to say just before we start that this presentation does not represent all of Fridays for Future, as we are a grassroots movement. No two people, no one person can represent everyone. So this presentation is going to be kind of personal to us, in a way that it won't be the same for other people in the movement, in the way that they skip school, in the way that they prioritize the climate and over education. So we'll start with who are we? I'm Isabel, you did a presentation already. I'm 18, so are you. Yeah. And we both just graduated gymnasium, or high school, and going to start university in a couple of weeks. But we also graduated high school while striking every Friday. And for me, that was every single Friday between 8 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And yeah, I studied at a school called, or I think we should take that, I studied social sciences at school and basically learned about society, learned about politics, rather than the natural sciences and the climate. But I've always been aware of the climate since I was a small child, since we grew up watching more nature documentaries than TV. Thanks, Mum, in the back. And so I've always been kind of aware of the climate and climate change, as I used to believe it was called, but now we call it the climate crisis. So I never had a big moment where I discovered the climate crisis and the problems that it brings and the crisis that it is. But it's always been kind of growing and existing, and then the strike was when it all culminated, and it's like, okay, I need to actually do something rather than just switching lamps off when I leave a room and eating less meat. And
I studied marine biology at a high school level in a small town called Lysekil on the west coast of Sweden, and I started striking in December. And I started striking, the first time I striked was in Stockholm during the winter break. But then afterwards I started striking in Lysekil then, which is only 4,000 people that live in the city. And I striked by myself as a youth for a while before I started convincing my friends to be able to join me. And now that I moved back to Stockholm, I've joined the rest of the group here, and it feels much better to be able to strike with other people that are as invested as I am. And I'm going to start studying this autumn at Stockholm University with a bachelor's in biology and earth sciences. what is Fridays for Future? We School Strike for Climate. It started in August 2018 when Greta Thunberg put herself down outside the parliament and declared that she was going to sit on a school strike for climate until the elections were being held 3 weeks later. Greta was joined almost immediately by several others. And after the election they decided together that the strike was gaining attention both in Sweden and internationally. So they would continue to strike every Friday and decided to name the movement Fridays for Future. On the biggest strike on the 15th of March, there was over 2.4 million strikers worldwide on every continent, which was in 135 countries.
Yes, and basically we're a movement, but what do we want? Yes, we do have some loose sets of demands, and the first one is keep the global temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels, and the climate and environmental justice and equity for everyone, and for our governments to stay in line with the Paris Agreement and to listen to the best available science. As we are a youth movement, we are not the ones with all the answers, as we have not had our education completed yet. So we are referring the politicians and the people in power to the scientists who have the answers and have all the facts. And basically we are a part of this movement because the coming years are incredibly vital for the environment. I think in 2020 we have to curb our carbon emissions by like 15% to be able to stay under the 1.5 degrees warming, and it is our future that is being affected. It is everybody's future being affected, like future generations, people that are living now, and it's not because of us, it's because of the generations before us, it's because of your guys' generation basically. And we're the people that are going to have to live through it, and that is why we are organised in this. And then education, so that's a picture of my school, that's a picture of Sophia School. And I'm going to start off with, I love education. I love learning things, otherwise I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And yes, I have a love-hate relationship with school and the education system. So basically I love going to school and I love learning and I love doing things, and I mean my preoccupation was to learn things basically full time. But I have autism, which means that I struggle sometimes with the school system and the way it's being taught. So it wasn't always the easiest thing to do. But I'm happy I did it, and I have learnt lots in school that I have been able to apply to my life and apply to activism. But for me, a lot of the education was done outside of school, so watching documentaries, watching educational videos on YouTube, searching Google for facts and Wikipedia as a source sometimes. But I think, so education for me is fun, and it's not something I would give up lightly. And education to me does not mean school. It does not mean going into a school system. It means learning new things, and it's a continuous process that I do all the time. It's like I'm learning right now. I've never held a presentation like this before, so I have absolutely no idea what we're doing. But we're trying and we're learning, and that's all part of it. So, what does the climate mean for us then? And as I said earlier, it's something that I have been aware of for as long as I can remember. And the climate crisis is now something that infuses every single part of my life. And it's something I think about almost constantly. It's always on my mind, either if I'm in school and even if I'm at my part-time job, I'm just like, it's in the back of my mind and I'm thinking about it. And every free hour I have pretty much goes back into working with the Fridays for Future movement and organising and planning and coordinating internationally. And it's constant and it's important though, so I feel like it's exhausting, but we do it because we need to do it, and it's something, I mean, it's there.
Exactly. Climate to me is the environment where we live, what we are dependent on, but we are abusing. I have always been aware of the climate change, as Isabel has clearly stated, and the global warming, or as we'd rather call it now, the climate crisis. I have always, as long as I can remember, wanted to be a marine biologist or scientific within the ocean. I've always, I want to work with nature, but I want to work with a healthy nature. So the climate crisis and the fact that we are abusing the climate has always been something I was aware of, something I had anxiety about, and something I was very angry about. Now these days it's one of my main focuses with the whole climate crisis, and it's at the back of my mind all the time, and I'm always thinking about it. And sometimes it doesn't feel real that this climate crisis is depending on us. I can't quite wrap my mind about it because it's so big. But you know, it's actually us humans doing it. We're creating this crisis that's going to affect all of us. It's killing the planet, it's killing the animals and all the other humans and us on it. But that just shows to us how big and important the climate is, and how important it is that we have to save it.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is that I don't understand. I don't understand how people can see and learn about the things happening today, like, you know, the polar ice is melting, the water levels rising, all the forest fires like in Siberia right now, and the drought in India, and they don't connect it to anything. They don't understand that it's a crisis. And I am terrified. I don't understand how they aren't terrified of things like this happening. I think people in general are aware that the climate is changing, but they're not aware or have the knowledge to understand that it's a crisis. And I think that is what terrifies me the most, that people don't know and they aren't aware of the crisis, so they don't act on it. And no one is acting. And that is why we are acting. That's why youth movements like this are acting, because we see that it's our future that's being affected. We see that it's other people being affected. And we know that it's not all about us and us in the now and what's going on. It's everything. So now you know a little bit about our background, like, you know, education and in the climate. So why are we prioritizing the climate over our school? And it is because it will not only affect us. It's not about me. I mean, if I continue my education, it would be like, you know, for my career, for my own feelings. Like, by the time I've completed my degree, I'm going to start in winter and then got a job, it's going to be too late, because action needs to happen now. Action needs to be done yesterday, it needs to be done 2 years ago, it needs to be done 10 years ago. We can't wait 5 years until I've got a job, maybe at Greenpeace or some other NGO that is fighting for the climate. So I mean, to me, it needs to be a priority over my own personal life. I mean, it's not like that for everyone, but for me, the climate goes over my school education, because it is bigger than me.
Yeah. To continue what Isabel was saying, it's very much about actually having a future to live in. If we focus on living now and educating ourselves and our working career, we will have an education, we will have a job, but we won't actually have a future or a planet to live on. But if we can focus and prioritize our time on saving the climate, and we could have a future where we can actually live and continue to thrive. Naturally, you can continue your education at the same time as doing the climate activism, as we are doing, as we both love to learn. But at the same time, I wonder if my education will actually mean anything in the future. In the end, will it have any meaning to society? What if nothing changes? What if we continue the path to collapse? Will my education mean anything when we have a social and ecological collapse? I believe we need to act and prioritize the climate for the sake of everything living. If we save the future and have plenty of time, we have plenty of time then to get more of an education, to get our job and work on our career.
Yeah, and it's not like it's fun to strike, put it that way. We're not a group of teenagers just skipping school for the fun of it, like, oh, I don't want to go to school on Fridays, let's just say I'm striking for the climate. I mean, for me, it's not very fun. I mentioned my autism earlier. I mean, all the social interactions of standing outside and speaking to people, I mean, and talking to everyone that comes to the strikes and want to know things, that's exhausting. It's so tiresome. And that's not even counting in how long we're doing it and what we're doing. We're standing outside for 7 hours outside of the Swedish Parliament. Winter, summer, our coldest strike was minus 12 degrees. That was 7 hours. And I think it was nearing 30 degrees during the summer, one of our strike days. So it's not something that we do for fun, to miss school, and most of us still do all our studying. We do it, we give up our weekends to catch up on school. We make sure our friends take notes in class, and it's not like we're skipping our education, we're skipping time in school to make a point. We're skipping our teachers', I don't know, respect for us sometimes, because they think we're just skiving off, and it's not true. Some of them, but some teachers have respected our choices, and they have really understood why I'm doing it and why we are doing it. But the majority of people don't, and they think we're just, skipping off, sitting at home and watching TV or something, which we're definitely not doing. So we're not skipping school because we want to, we're skipping school because it's the right thing for us to do, and it's the right thing for humanity and for the planet, basically. So, Wikipedia, here we are. Unfortunately, in Sweden at least, and in many other countries as well, it has been hammered into our brains, basically, that Wikipedia is not a credible source of information to use in school. And I think that's because most people don't know how to use it, but also because the statements like this. Greta Thunberg's bicycle. That's not a bike. That's actually a man that strikes with us. His name is Michael, and that's his bike. But that's a small thing, but it could be bigger things, and you don't always think about what you read, and you're not always source critical when you when you read a page, you want to see it and you see the facts. And Wikipedia's not like that. You have to go into the sources and you have to look through what it is, and it's really good because Wikipedia is a good way to go in, get the basics, and then find more reading material. But it is quite confusing sometimes and not always the easiest thing to use. So yeah, back to that.
Yeah. So how can Wikipedia help our cause? Well, basically, something that would help is that if we create lists of easy-to-find climate facts with their sources clearly stated. There is a serious lack of places where we can find a link or a page where it's easy to understand the climate facts. Because there are some facts that you can clearly stated and you can read it and you'll understand. While there's other times it can be long, complicated words which will take lots of concentration and understanding to understand. But we need these to be easy to understand at the same time as they're being credible. These lists could link to more comprehensive pages with more information about these facts. Through maybe immediately after these facts in the original list, it's clearly stated that this fact is taken from this source, or these sources all state this fact. So it's much easier, specifically for young people, to use it and follow it in a way where they can understand and where they have the concentration level where they can follow it to the end. Because young people these days, we don't always have the concentration, or we don't have the time, or we don't have the knowledge to understand these long scientific reports like the IPCC or the NASA reports. We need something that's smaller, more concrete, more easy to understand, maybe in different points in rows where it's easily stated in words where we understand. Especially because in most places English is not a native language, where the whole language will become this barrier of understanding.
Yeah, and I think that doesn't just apply for school students, I think that applies for many people that don't understand what's going on. Like, the knowledge isn't that accessible for people to gain. Knowledge isn't taught in schools in the way that we want it to be, and when you just Google quick and easy climate facts so you can learn things, you don't find much. So basically, Wikipedia, which is used by most people, to be honest, is, I think, a good way if you had ways that was easy for people to find all that information. And also, of course, you should be as environmentally friendly as possible. Like, put pressure on governments, put pressure on other companies, and like, you know, implement like actual climate policies and stuff within the company and do something. Like, don't just talk, act. Do we have a lot more? No. I think we have some openings for questions and stuff, because I think that's what's most interesting in general, because we can talk a lot, but I think it's more fun for people to get like questions answered for what they wonder about the movement, about us, than what we can think of, because we might have missed something that you're really interested about, or yeah.
Thank you so much. So if it's okay, I'll take questions for you, and if you want, you can stay standing or you can sit down as you prefer. And I suppose there's a lot of questions. You can start.
In Germany, the politicians are very surprised about your movement, and they make now many speaking, but they don't acting. In Sweden, do the parties or the government acting or only speaking?
They are mostly speaking in what I think. I think since our movement started, the climate has become something that most people are aware of, and it's like advertisement for companies that have actually no interest in the environment or the climate. And politicians have realized the same thing, that they speak like, oh, of course we're doing everything we can for the climate and we support you, young people school striking, but they don't actually do anything and implement it into rules and laws and regulations. So there's a lot of speaking like, of course we support you, but you should go to school, and we won't actually do anything. Yeah.
Two things. First, I already corrected the mistake you pointed out in the article, so now the mistake is not getting too much. And the second thing is, this is an international conference where most people fly here to attend the conference.
Yeah.
And we know that flying is one of the biggest issues, and maybe we as a movement should think a bit more about like our carbon footprint. Do you, as you're also a global movement, how do you deal with that? Are there global meetings? Do you have online meetings? How do you?
So we have a lot of online meetings.
Yeah.
I spent many an evening, sometimes in the middle of the night, speaking with people from America or from India via Zoom or Skype. A couple of weeks ago we had, or not, like last week it was actually, we came home last Sunday from an international summit in Switzerland, in Lausanne, and we moved from 38 different countries, mostly European, and we travelled by train or by bus, and some people by ferry. So we tried to do like more local international meetings and stuff to avoid flying, and you know, like Greta's doing at the moment, she's taking a sailboat over the Atlantic to avoid flying. So I think it's hard, but it can be done. So we do online meetings, more local international conferences. Of course it's not applicable for everything, as you do need to, but yeah, flying it's not something that we want to be responsible of in our movement.
There's a lot of harassment against Greta right now in Germany, especially from the German press, because the pilots from the boat have to fly back, or have to fly to the US to take the boat back. So there's a lot of harassment going on. How do you deal with it? Maybe you're confronted too. Are you prepared? How do you prepare for that?
I mean, because Greta is the most prominent person in the media, she's the one that receives the majority of all the hate. I mean, we receive some, and in general it's pretty easy to ignore, because a lot of it, I mean, from that specific thing, it's unfortunate and none of us are happy about it. It's really sad that they have to fly to be able to do something like that, just to make a point, but I think it does release more emissions since it's two people flying, but in the end it would be even worse if she did fly. I think for the amount of stuff that she has been doing, if she went up and flied, I mean, that would be insane. I don't think we would be able to recover from that. But in general, hate is pretty easy to ignore, because we know that a lot of it is unfounded, or it's made from people that aren't aware of the crisis, that they haven't read all the facts or they've been fed misinformation. It's much harder when hate comes from someone that is educated and does know about the crisis and still wants to insult us.
Alright, probably someone in the back sitting in front of their laptops, they're already fixing the Wikipedia page
Yeah.
and the error that you've been pointing
Yeah.
at. So it's very good that you came and told us about that. Your turn, and then you.
You're talking a lot about bite-sized information. I'm a teacher at a school, and we've been working a lot with the climate, and we still don't have any children engaged in Fridays for Future. They're in the age 16 to 18, but none of them seem to actually care. Sometimes when we suggest as teachers, do you want to do a vegetarian week? We have children saying, well, if we do a vegetarian week, we need to do a meat week. How do you feel that the knowledge flow within the movement? I mean, I can only affect so many through my own veganism. I've managed to make my family vegan, and then a bigger part of my family accept veganism and eat vegan for periods of time. But how do you manage to, within the movement, control these big four, like the flying and the car travel and living large? Of course, as a child, you don't really decide where you live, and then not eating meat. How do you get the knowledge within the movement moving?
So the point in our movement is, of course, spreading as much knowledge as possible and just telling people about the consequences of different things. But at the same time, Fridays for Future is not a movement that directs itself at individuals. We don't direct any of our demands towards people that need to change. I mean, of course, it would be good if, like, everyone went vegan, because that is a really good way, like, especially concerning after the new IPCC report came out, and it was telling us about, like, how farming and agriculture and land use really affects the CO2 levels and the carbon emissions. But we are directing our demands and we're demanding action from politicians and from companies and people in power, because they are the ones that can decide and they can make the real difference. I think them putting through regulations that make it easier for people to make choices to be vegan and fly less, it will be easier for people to make those choices even if they don't like it. So I mean, at the moment, it's not the easiest thing to be vegan. It's not that easy, it's not that cheap, to be honest. And the same with flying, it's way harder to travel by train than to take an airplane. And if we keep putting pressure on governments and the people in power, they will hopefully change it as quick as possible so that the changes will be easier for people. Because at the moment, I think people choose to take paths that are easy over the path that is right, even if they have the education.
Because this is like a typical, it needs to happen both top down and bottom up.
Exactly.
But your way of the bottom up is talking to the, like, let's
Yeah.
happen from top down.
Pretty much.
But when we at the school go top down,
Yeah.
nothing happens. Like our children, because I'm terrified of the climate crisis.
Yeah.
But our children don't seem to care.
Where do you come?
Sweden. So this is where the movement is huge. I work at a school in Stockholm, yet none of our 400 children attend any of the
No, I
school
mean,
strikes.
I think that's something that really differs from person to person, and I think it's very different between being a teacher and being top down and teaching people than being the politicians that put in actual regulations. I think if you put in a meat-free week at school, the students wouldn't be able to do much about it, would they? I mean, they wouldn't be able to demand a meat week. I mean, isn't meat week like every week in Swedish schools at the moment?
Yeah.
So I mean,
We were
it's-
saying that too. It's every week.
yeah. So I think top down doesn't necessarily mean it's what everyone agrees and likes, but what is needed at the moment, because it is for everyone's future.
So one of the people that just came in is Scott from South Africa. He is one of the people that have done a lot recently to improve climate coverage on Wikipedia, and thank you for coming and thank you for doing this. Very cool. And here we have another Swedish climate activist.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you.
Sad that the strike in Sweden is going to be the 27th of September. In Germany, we're focusing on the 20th. So there's like a week of action.
Yes.
We should word it like that, maybe.
Yeah, it's the same here. On the 20th of September, we're having the global school strike, the big school strike. And on the 27th, we're having the political strike where we want all the unions to join, like the big strike. And then the week in between, we're going to be doing a lot more stuff as well. So it's going to be a whole week where we start with the school strike and we end with the political strike with the support of the adults.
Yeah, I think the Germans are calling it Week for Climate.
Yeah, well, yeah, they call it the week of climate, but the
Yeah.
strike is focused on the 20th for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's not like.
It's different in different countries,
Yeah.
depending on what works.
And there's also like, I think, parts of the movement that call themselves Parents for Climate and, or, Parents for Future.
Parents for future.
There's Scientists for Future, and we are trying to also, especially of course, connect with the Scientists for Future because we need to improve climate change information or climate information on Wikipedia. We had a session on that this morning already. Yeah, wonderful. In fact.
First.
Oh, sorry, you go
I'm waving
first.
at you, yeah. No, just a really quick comment. For those of you don't know, but I'm actually with Fridays for Future Estonia, so hello. And one of the things that we've actually not we just thought of this a while back. I still haven't consulted my local colleagues, but one of the things we've been talking about in terms of the Week for Climate is to get businesses and institutions possibly to strike with us to close down for a couple of hours on, I think we're still unclear, it's probably going to be the 27th. I thought about maybe I could talk the Estonian Wikipedia into doing this, to do a blackout. That would be quite nice. So if you would all like to do
Well, I'd like to comment on this blackout thing that the other person was before.
Yes, you were first.
Go ahead.
Paola, go ahead if you want.
All right. I wonder if it is a good idea to have a blackout. It might be a better idea to have a focus on climate issues. We could feature climate issue on the entering, like whenever you ask a question to Wikipedia that day, you will first get climate. I don't know if that is technically possible, but I think it is quite a different message in order to say, well, there's no knowledge for you today. It would be, knowledge is important, but please get informed on the climate issue first.
Yeah, that's
I don't
actually
know
a
if
very
that
good
is
point.
possible.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point because I just realised basically if it's a whole full day of strikes, especially if we get businesses and other institutions on board, maybe people go home and they're really confused about what's going on and they're going to Google it and then Wikipedia is going to be no, I'm going to tell you tomorrow, but.
All right, your turn.
So I wonder, you're having a very strong movement, and I wonder how you deal with issues when it comes to evaluating what is good and not. If we go back to Sweden, we looked a few years ago, many stores here decided to go from having plastic bags to offer bags of cotton or cloth to be carrying home your food. Now the Denmark's Ministry of Environment and Food realizes that if you make an organic cotton bag to bring home your food, it's a much environmental impact as if you were taking a plastic bag, a new bag every day for 55 years. Okay, so it's encouragement. You think you're doing something good, but you have no idea about the life cycle analysis. And where we are at the moment, we are doing things which we believe are good, and 3 or 4 years from now, we realize that it was much better to stay where we are at the moment. So when you're saying that the politicians are not taking these steps, maybe it's because we don't know that the new steps, or where we think without knowing where we're going, are the good ones. And when you have this, the power where you are, let's take the schools in Sweden for elderly homes are supposed to go towards organic farming and say, okay, this is good food. But there's not land enough in Sweden to provide all the food that we need if this movement is taking place. And how is that then dealt with? So I'm wondering how, when you are in the position where you are, you have a strong movement, you're talking with politicians, you're suggesting things, coming to conclusions, and you realize that 3 years from now, you were part of making things work. And how do you tackle that?
Well, okay, I think these are our demands. We are not asking our governments to make specific small steps. We're asking them to stop everything. We're asking them to 1.5 degrees. We don't specialize in these specific questions like plastic bags and cotton bags for the same reason that we don't know what will happen. We are not experts. We just know that change needs to happen. We don't know how it needs to happen specifically, but we do know that the scientists have science, and we do know that we know what is causing the damage right now, and that is plastic, and that is pollution. And we need the pollution of all these greenhouse gases to stop. But we don't have any solutions because we're children. We can't answer that, but we do refer. That's why we refer the politicians to the scientists that in general do know. That's why we refer to the IPCC report so much, because they have done a lot of research. And yes, more research can come in the future that say that this is wrong, but we do need to go off what we have now to try and make the situation, because if we keep waiting for more research to disprove what we have now or prove that what we already had is true, then we're never going to get anything done, and it will be too late.
I'm going to ask a couple of questions from some immediate replies, so please bear with me.
Okay.
How did you learn about what institutions did you access to learn about the severity of climate change?
Well, I think for us, we mentioned this in the presentation earlier, that we grew up watching nature documentaries and just like in general learning from different points of views. Of course it was brought up in school as well, but not in the severity that is needed.
Did Wikipedia play a role in informing you about the situation regarding climate change?
I think for me personally it was hammered into my head in school that Wikipedia is not a credible source, so I haven't spent a lot of time on Wikipedia, to be honest, but I have been reading IPCC reports and other reports and articles like that. But yeah, Wikipedia does come in every once in a while.
I suppose what I'm getting here for everyone here is that Wikipedia, and so I was involved with a climate change workshop to improve the quality of Africa-related climate change topics in Wikipedia, and that was born out of a realization that there's, on climate change in general, Africa in particular, but climate change in general, there's a lack of quality content on Wikipedia about it, and so that's like, I think Wikimania is the ideal place to talk about this exact issue. If you want to do climate change activism, you want to inform people about climate change, an ideal way to do it from your bedroom, it's definitely not the only place to try and affect change, but if you want to do it from the comfort of your own home, then improving the quality and quantity of articles related to climate change across multiple languages is a good place to start, and I would advocate people do that. There's a very active climate change work group on Wikipedia, and joining that, I think. So this is my plug, right? So please edit Wikipedia.
Yes, yeah, we agree that spreading knowledge is one of the most effective ways, and that's also, I think, what we do in our movement, is that we get on the streets and we get attention, and we're like, oh, what are they doing? Oh, they're demonstrating or striking for the climate, and then they want to know more about it. Hopefully that's the plan, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's Wiki Project Climate Change. We learned this morning it was officially founded 1 week ago. It's been around, lingering for a little bit.
That's right.
Oh, congrats.
Yes, yeah.
Ah,
but what wasn't me though.
All right. You have more questions? Yes.
What do you think about the fact that Wikimania actually serves meat to the participants?
Okay, so again, we don't go on the individual action. I mean, me personally, I'm a vegan, so I wouldn't eat it. And of course, it's unfortunate if they're focusing on the climate and then actively do things that are not good for the climate. And it's companies that should make changes and push on politicians as well. But again, that's not something that I can, or that we have the authority to condemn.
Yeah, all right. So thank you very much. Let's all join Wiki Project Climate and or go striking, or both, or whatever you think is right. everybody will find their own little nook within the climate movement. And thank you so much for coming. I know your schedules are very busy, and it's a small crowd here. We're looking forward to putting the video online and getting a bigger crowd online. And we already made some connections now. Thank you for coming. The next and final session for today is about water data on Wikidata and climate data on Wikidata. And I've been emailing with the panelists before, trying to understand what they do. So this is going to be very scientific, I hope. But they promised me that everybody can understand it. We're inviting you to stay around. Thank you again so much for coming. And yeah, everybody enjoy the rest of the afternoon and the rest of the conference. Great.